Hello folks, Dave Schmidt here. Well, it's the afternoon now of January 1st of our new year and also the new decade of 2020. And what I want to do is kind of give an update message to what we can be expecting in this coming year from me and some others about some things that are happening. As I had mentioned, I've taken on a new identity here, the Cosmic Connections, the new name, but with also I'm going to start shifting some of the format of what I've been talking about. Now, my primary message has always been around the currency exchanges, and yes, I will continue with that. But I'm going to start talking about how that folds into and how that correlates with what's coming our way in contrast to how we think. In the past videos in the workshops, I've been sharing some of the books that I've been reading about how consciousness impacts everything around us in conjunction with understanding what is quantum physics and the world that brings about us. Now, that's the larger perspective of what I will be doing. But what I'm also going to be doing in these programs, I'm going to be making a shift where I'm going to start bringing in more guests. Now, if you go back and if you look at over what I've done over the last 5 years, I've had very, very few guests. If any guest I have brought in, it's because they have worked in cooperation or in conjunction with where I was going and the message that I was wanting to bring along. Now, the exception to that has always been Robert Dunlap with Meadow and Coin. Well, because I'm very deeply involved in that. But as I'm moving into this new year, the messages will have a slight shift to it about the importance of who we are as a human race, what is our position, and what is our responsibility to help in this shifting year that is coming our way. In the year 2020, there's a lot of messages that are out there saying this is the year that we can really expect to see some changes. Changes in the bigger environment about what's been going on in our world behind the scenes. Things that have been taking place, in the whole corruption world, if that's what we would call it, things that are taking place around Trump's impeachment and the other side of the Cabal side of the story on that. I've got some of my own personal insider information on that, but what I've been hearing consistently is people, they've been asking about when are we going to start seeing the truth come out? When are we going to start seeing some of the arrests taking place? When are we going to see what happened really inside the FBI and the Department of Justice in conjunction, with the Clinton emails, etc., and stuff like that? And I've been consistently hearing, expect stuff to start happening in the spring. February, March, and April was when a lot of this is going to start coming out. And a recent video that I watched with Corey Good talked about that it's going to start coming out. There's a difference between what was called the Pfizer report that just recently came out versus the Horowitz investigation. And it says the Horowitz investigation is what is going to start revealing most of the stuff. Now, what does this mean? It means there's going to be a lot of chaos. There's going to be a lot of chaotic activity. And this is going to create some very divisive split and separation within our country. We are already a country here in the United States that's very divided politically, which represents the division of our worldview. And we're almost right down the middle. We consistently see national elections very close, about half Republican, half Democrat, split down the middle. Polls that are taken are also very close on this subject. We see the impeachment issue. The polls are very close again on the subject about how people see this. I think what's going to start happening is disclosure is going to start happening, and it's going to give us the opportunity of what is called to wake up. Now, in my workshops, I always started out that the importance of all of this stuff taking place, whether it's in the political world, whether it's in the media world, or whether it's in the financial world, that we have lived in a world that has basically been run and controlled by those that we call the Cabal. And it's our responsibility as humanity to wake up. Now, waking up is not just a one-shot deal. It's basically a progress that happens within our lives, and it happens on a step-by-step basis over a process of time. The key to waking up is usually the opening of a crisis. The crisis is usually what creates the opportunity for us to wake up. And when the crisis happens, we begin to question. Because see, until then, we kind of just move along in life. We accept things that we are. We see the drama that goes on. We kind of react to it one way or another. But we don't do things within our own personal lives or even collectively to start implementing change. And the crisis is what becomes the trigger. Crisis always creates opportunity for change. And I think this is going to be the year that we're going to see the crisis. And when the crisis happens, it gives us the opportunity and it creates a greater division and a greater split. But also in the process, what happens is truth comes out in that. When the truth starts coming out, it gives people the opportunity to choose what they're going to do. And when this stuff starts happening in the springtime, I'm going to be talking about the importance of us, of how we relate to this drama. Are we going to become involved in the drama? Are we going to participate in the drama? Or are we going to be spectators of the drama? Because see, how we relate to it, our consciousness will determine what will happen within our lives individually and within our lives collectively. Now, let me take a step back and talk about the world that we have been in. We have been in a world that basically has been controlled by those that we would call the Cabal, the Illuminati, the deep state, whatever it is, term that you wish to use. I've consistently used the word the Cabal. These are the people that I would call the dark side, the dark hats that are addicted to power and control. Because power and control is a very, very powerfully addictive thought process upon those who have the ability to have that power and control. And the Cabal has controlled our world by controlling two predominant paradigms. Number one, the paradigm of information, and number two, the paradigm of money and finances. Now, let me talk about the paradigm of information. We live in a world, up until we had the internet, that most of our information came from three predominant sources. Number one was the media, and I would say both TV, radio, print media, all of those combined. Number two was our education system, our public education system, whether it was K through 12 and even in the universities. And number three was the entertainment industry. When you take those three combined, they were what were giving us the information that was basically predicating for the majority of humanity what was their worldview. Now, the media industry, we know the Cabal controls that. We've been told now that there are about 4 to 6 different sources that control corporations, 4 to 6 different corporations that control about 80 to 90% of the media. This is print media, radio media, TV media. I would call it the conventional media industry. And they have controlled that. The second was the education institutions, the education industry, the public education within our schools. There's a famous quote from the Rockefellers says that public education was created not to teach people how to think for themselves and not to become intelligent, but to produce workers, to produce the massive amount of workers for the power elite in their corporations. That was the purpose of the education industry. So the education industry has basically been designed to keep the masses dumbed down and not awake and alert to what's really going on around them in the world. And then the third part of that is the entertainment industry. If you think the entertainment industry doesn't have an impact on our life, it's a massive impact on our lives. Entertainment through the media, entertainment through movies, through radio, through sports, etc. Whatever it is that we consider entertainment, it's what we watch, what we observe. We allow that to impact our lives. So when you take those three combined, they had a very, very powerful impact upon the masses developing their worldview. And then what happened? The internet came around. And I've shared this with you that the internet has probably been one of the greatest gifts to humanity in helping us wake up to the truth. Because see, in the internet, we've been able to discover the truth for ourselves. The masses have not been dependent upon the cabal, what they're feeding to us. We've been able to create our own entertainment and observe and make a decision about what was true. We've been able to create our own alternate media, and they're alternate to what they are telling us. And we've been able to basically create our own form of an education system. Through the internet now, you basically have the ability to educate yourself through the very same things that's being taught in the universities. You could get the same information that is equivalent to a master's degree by taking the time to learn. Now, yes, it takes a lot of research, and yes, it takes a lot of discernment, because there's a lot of false information that's out there on the internet. And there's fake news on the internet just as much as there's fake news in the conventional media industry as well. But in that, we get to discern, we get to learn, we get to understand, and we get to see the truth and learn it for ourselves. So it's an empowerment to the masses, freeing ourselves from the control of the elite. That's been going on for us now for about 10 to 15 years, and it will continue to grow. We're seeing the elites attempt to regulate that, as we're seeing places like Facebook and YouTube that are basically creating a censorship from some of the stuff that is coming out. But if we continue to look, you will find we always have the means to find it if we're willing to do our research, because they can't stop everything. The second issue is the power and control of money. Money is the dominant controller of our world, because if you have the money, you can control what goes on around you. And we understand and know that the money has been controlled by, again, those that we would call the cabal, the extremely wealthy people that control the central banking systems around the world. Every country in the world except 2 has central banks. In the United States, our central bank is the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve controls the ebb and flow of the money supply. And by doing that, they also falsely create the ebb and flows of the economies. They pump up the debt, create this great abundance, and then crash the systems. They do that intentionally for their forms of power and control. And what it does, the masses, as us, we end up being controlled by that. Well, what's happening now is that we're just starting on the edge. It took about 10 to 15 years for the internet to have its full implication in the control of the information sources. And we're now on the very front cutting edge where the masses have the ability to empower themselves in the world of finance. And that is through the cryptocurrency system. Let me give an illustration. In the current financial world, we live in a world that a bank is basically the middleman, the middle person in every single financial transaction that you and I have. As an illustration, if you choose to come to one of my workshops, you're going to pay for it through either, number one, using a debit or a credit card. But when you pay that, the money doesn't go from you directly to me. It goes from your debit card account to the bank, and then the bank pays me. If you write a check, it's the same way. You write a check, it goes, authorizes the bank, and then the bank pays me. If you want cash, you have to go to the bank to get the cash. So you see, the banking industries, which is controlled by this elite cabal, they control financial transactions. And what's changing now is in the cryptocurrency industry, the bank is taken out of the transaction. You have a peer-to-peer, individual-to-individual financial transaction. See, financial transactions are basically forms of barter, is what they are. We determine that there's a certain value to something that we would wish to receive, and you either pay that to me in a form of barter. And the most common form of barter is to pay through a financial transaction. Well, what's happening now in the cryptocurrency industry is that we can give directly one to another. The day will soon be coming for those of you that are attending my workshops. You will be able to pay me in either Bitcoin, Meta One Coin, or another form of a cryptocurrency industry. I accumulate those into my crypto account, where the large masses of money is held, and then I only transfer a small amount into the bank industries to do my day-to-day financial transactions. But instead of holding large sums of money, what is called my discretionary funds, whether it could be 10,000, 10 million, or whatever it is, I don't hold those in the bank anymore. I hold those in my cryptocurrency accounts. And I only use the banking transactions for my day-to-day financial activity in the world around me. What does that do? It removes very, very large sources of financial money from the bank industry. Because see, the banks are dependent upon us having large sources of money in reserves in their banks, and they use that money for power and control. Here's an example. Right now, let's say you had $10,000 in a bank account. You're lucky if you're getting 1 to 1.5% interest from the bank. But they take that $10,000 and the thousands of others people, and the next thing you know, they've got $100 million to $200 million sitting in their our bank accounts, and they use that money to go make other money, giving them 100 to 200 to 300% returns per year. That's the deep corruption of the banking industry, making 200% per year off of us, and while they're only paying us 1.5%. And again, it's the Federal Reserve that determines those interest rates that the banks pay out. So imagine if that $100, $200 million is no longer sitting in the bank, it's sitting in cryptocurrency accounts. They don't have that money to generate their power and control, to generate wealth for themselves, to generate funds to control the financial world around us. That is the shift that we are going into. Now, it will take time as humanity as a whole to make that shift and transition, just as it took time for us to wake up through the internet. It's going to take time for us to wake up to where we can be in financial control ourselves. These are the changes that we're going through. And as we're moving into this year of 2020, in my estimation, this is going to be a year of great contrast and great chaos. On one hand, we're going to see the truth coming out about the things we've been waiting for. The truth about the deep corruption that is in the top justice systems within predominantly in America. The deep corruption that was at the top of the FBI. The deep corruption that was the top of our justice system. That's going to come out into the open, and it's going to create great drama and great chaos. At the same time, those of us that are waking up, we get to be observers of the drama instead of participants in the drama, and that frees us in our thoughts. It frees us in our consciousness to rise above the drama and have a very powerful impact on creating positive change. Those are the things that I'm looking forward to bringing to you this year. And I'll be bringing in guests to even explaining that. I'll be giving to you more articles that I've been reading or videos that I've been appearing. And these are the things that are coming us into the coming year. So I'm anticipating an absolutely great year for us in this 2020 year. Because you see, those of you who are watching this video, we're the ones who are waking up. You wouldn't be here if you weren't in that position. You wouldn't be listening to people like me and others who are explaining this. So we're the ones who get to be the pioneers, the trailblazers, to helping to create the new positive world for us. But in the creation of the positive world, there's also going to be the chaos going on at the same time. So this is an exciting time for us, and I look forward to sharing with you in this new age and era as we've moved into the new decades of the 2020s. Thank you very much, and I'll look forward to seeing you. Thanks. Okay. Bye-bye.